You're a SaaS founder, you've built something solid, but growth still feels harder than it should. Most SaaS companies don't fail because of bad tech. They fail because they've never become a must-have to the right customer. This podcast is here to change that. I'm Ton Dobbe, and this is the Remarkable SaaS Podcast. Every week I talk to founders in the trenches, facing friction, making bold moves, and building companies that last. We dig into real choices around focus, positioning, customer pool, team alignment, the things that separate forgettable software from the ones that people can't live without. No hype, no hacks. Just honest conversations to help you build something that people would miss if it was gone. If your SaaS should be indispensable but isn't yet, this is your podcast. Let's get into it. The guest on my podcast this week is Joseph Lee, CEO of Supademo.
You need to build the right levers into your business where you're riding the momentum of the market or momentum of the product, or not doing as much like hand-to-hand combat.
This is Joseph. We dig into why he chose the gritty path his bigger competitors refused to walk, and what that earned him in 3 years. You'll hear why he believes 99% of startups' momentum comes from somewhere founders rarely look, and why measuring more was making his team slower, not smarter. He built another company before this one. He raised money, scaled the team, and watched it not work the way he hoped. Supademo is what he built with those scars. The conversation reveals what he refused to do, and what that refusal earned him. Well, hi Joseph. Thank you for making the time available today and being the guest on my podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ton. Super excited.
Yeah, well, I was excited when I got the request from one of your team members, and when I started reading into what Supademo does, it brought back some smiles on my face based on what I've experienced in the past. So here we are. Well, we're going to talk about your company and possibly also a little bit about the company that you did before, because I'd like to get a little bit of an exchange about what you learned there. But before we start, what drives you? What gives you energy as an entrepreneur?
I think for me, the biggest thing is like manifesting a legacy and achieving what I know I am capable of as a human. For me, I think entrepreneurship is probably the most profound way to like create impact and achieve your potential. And that's always what has driven me. Like I want to like leave a legacy and make my mark on the world. And for me, building something from nothing and manifesting it into the world and having people use it and love it and share it. I think that's always been a driving factor for me.
I can see from your entrepreneurial journey that you've done a lot. All the way from when you were 14, selling bulk electronics on the parking lot. But at some point you started to get into the software industry. What was that particular thing that you say, hey, it's going to be the software industry?
Yeah, it's not always, and granted, I didn't always do the right things. I probably did more wrong things than right things in my startup journey. And, I'd be lying if I said I had a grand vision or a plan of what I wanted to do. And software was the vertical I went after. It was just very much serendipity and, as you know, naivety, right? You come up with an idea with a friend. It sounds compelling. You probably don't do as much research as you should because you're a young entrepreneur who's excited and giddy to start running. And so for us, it was more about, hey, here's a problem space and opportunity that we stumbled upon. We're so excited about it, and we're going to go head down and just research and talk to people and start building. And then, as you know, one thing led to another, and we went from being students to dropping out to starting a business, raising money. And then suddenly you have people with mortgages, right? And you're like, oh, crap, I got to go full time on this. So that's kind of what happened for me.
Exactly. Well, let's first get into Supademo, because you started that early 2023, and you already mentioned the word, the problem space. What was a problem that you saw that was screaming for something that wasn't there, and you just said, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, well, for me, it was more of scratching my own itch. Having built another company for 6 years, we went through a series of pivots, and the industry that we were working in, we were selling to very like tech nascent, late adopters of tech, people in distribution plants and warehouses that didn't understand technology inside and out, well, like a lot of technology entrepreneurs do. And I've
Mhm.
always had trouble trying to demonstrate like the value of my product, why it mattered, and getting people to actually adopt it once we sold them the product. And yeah, like I struggled with getting people scheduled on one-on-one calls. People didn't want to sit through a 30-minute session. I tried video recording, but I hated my own voice and I was screwing up multiple times and it was constantly out of date. So it was one of those moments where I knew there had to be a better way. And as an entrepreneur, you usually keep different like problems you run into in the back pocket or on a notepad as something you're going to look at next. And Supademo was one of probably like 5 to 6 ideas that I looked at after I transitioned. And yeah, one thing led to another. And here we are today, 3 years later.
Exactly. Yeah. And then 3 years later, company grew towards 3, 4 million in revenue. Couple of thousand
Yes.
customers, 2,000 customers, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're on the ball. So we last time I checked, I think we were at about 2,500 paying logos, so corporations or
Wow.
organizations. Free users were at about 200,000 operators,
Yeah,
founders,
exactly.
marketers. Yeah.
And with a pretty lean team, 15 people, as I understood.
Yeah, and we just grew too. I think we were at closer to like 11 or 12 until like March of this year. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
just
yeah,
starting to kind of stack talent and efficiency and building the company the right way has always
yeah.
been a pretty important thing for us.
Well, that intrigued me because I mean, there's something going on there that's about growth and not growth at all costs. Bootstrap is something that I read that is in your mindset. So let's dig into that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing the starting story of Supademo. Um, 2023, you start a new company. You decide to stop the other one. Um, what has been an early decision that, if you look back right now, has been, yeah, fundamental for where you are today?
Yeah, I think two things that actually interweave together, I think that helped us build some early stage momentum was number one, like building in public. I think a lot of
Uh,
people want uh, to buy from people and hear the story, which is one of the reasons why I'm, doing podcasts like this with you, Tom. But people want to buy from other people, and if you add value first while building in public, sharing the harsh lessons, the playbooks, the tactics, that things that helped you grow and the things that actually hindered you from growing and failures that you lived through, people appreciate that, and you end up building a like an implicit level of trust that
yeah,
helps your company. So we did that from like the very, very, very beginning of the company. And then on the other side, it was more so, um, how do we leverage our competitive edge, which is just speed and velocity? At that time, not everyone had AI, so we could move faster than the incumbents. So it was all about how do we do the work, the manual work, the gritty work that the bigger companies won't do, and just make it easier for people to say yes to trying out our service, whether it's creating the demos for them, manually onboarding them, answering every single support ticket for them as a founder, just doing anything and everything we could to maximize, the probability of them saying, okay, yeah, I'll try it out.
Let me make a small interruption here. Joseph just made a remark that sets his approach apart from how most SaaS founders think about competing with better funded rivals. He chose to do the work his bigger competitors wouldn't, and he kept doing it long after most founders would have stopped. He realized that doing the work others won't is what compounds, and that what looks slow at the start outpaces capital in the long run. This is what remarkable software companies do. They aim to be different, not just better. Then they turn customers into fans, and they master the art of creating momentum. Want to master these traits as well? Simply read my book. I've made the electronic version available for free. Just visit theremarkableeffect.com to to grab your copy, and inspiration will spark within 10 minutes. Back to the interview. Yeah, it's product-led growth. So it all starts with someone that gets attracted, that sees something, then puts in their credit card, or even use the free version. But I mean, then I understand then it's all about converting them and keeping them so that they don't churn. When did
Yeah.
you what was that moment where you found product market fit? Was that already in the first year or?
Yeah. It's interesting because I almost don't think product market fit is a singular moment. There's like
That's true.
different tiers to product market fit. I'd say our first like signs of product market fit probably were at about 100 users. So most of them weren't paying, but I think when we started to have these users organically tell other people about Supademo, and even like take the time out of their day, like 5 minutes to say, you've built an incredible product. This is like, can I invest or can I help share or can I collaborate with you guys? I think them taking that initiative without us having to ask them to spread the message, I think that was probably like the first step of product market fit. And that was at about 100 users.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that must have been really fast then, because from my notes, it says, okay, from 0 to 2,000 users in 5 months in 2023, and then May 2023 to January 2024, 10x the revenue, which of course is on a small basis, but also hundreds of
Yeah.
paying companies. So it's really become like this flywheel, and that always intrigues me. What has been, the thing that you believed has made that flywheel going? Is there a singular
Um,
thing, or is it a combination of a lot of things?
yeah, I think it's a combination of like probably 100 different things like bubbling up. I think the
Mhm.
base needs to be there. You need to have an exceptional product, have an exceptional experience, both human and product led. And you need to build the right levers into your business where you're riding the momentum of the market or momentum of the product, or not doing as much like hand-to-hand combat. You shouldn't be fighting to win every single user. So for us, that was things like, latching onto SEO on the top, middle, and bottom of funnel. We had different playbooks and strategies around that.
Yeah,
It was doing things like free tools when that was much more popular than it is now, to try to like add value and get free users that convert into the main product. And it was just making sure the viral loop of like folks creating the demo, sharing the demo, and then the other person knowing that it's a stupid demo and making it easy for them to also sign up themselves. I
yeah,
think those three things are probably the things that drove the most
yeah.
momentum.
Typically product-led growth scenarios. Um, in that whole journey, what has been a decision where you still look back on and say, "Hey, that was a tough one, but it had to be taken."
I think most of the tough, like frankly speaking, I think we've been very lucky in our journey so far. In I think the business trajectory being fairly smooth and customers supporting us along the way. I'd say if I had to nail down, specifics of like what we didn't do as well, it's probably hiring. Sometimes I think even though I had learned that lesson so many times, I think sometimes it's easy to put too much merit into the facade of a potential employee. So you interview them and you put too much creds into their university or their past job, even when your gut is actually telling you, no, this is not the right person for our culture or for our business. And we've made a few mistakes in building Supademo where we brought on the wrong hire. They kind of decimate the culture because every new person has a pretty inordinate amount of impact on culture in the
Yeah.
early days. So yeah, that kind of helped, probably slowed us down and torpedoed our company culture a few times before we were able
Well,
to
yeah,
recover.
yeah. I mean, I completely hear you. I mean, actually, I had someone on my podcast that is in the culture building space, and he
Okay,
literally said that, every person you cannot say I have a culture, because every person you hire changes it. And if
exactly.
you're if you're still in your 10 to 15 people space, I mean, that means a lot of percentage. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
no, exactly. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, talking about building in public, is that possibly sort of the trick to don't make that many mistakes because you reflect more on it? Because I mean, a lot of companies, I see a lot of people do it, but it's
Mm.
also I also know a lot of people that say, "I'd never do this because it is too scary for me."
I think the scary factor I think is definitely there. I don't think anyone really is confident enough to just start sharing every day without thinking twice. Like I definitely was a little worried because I think we all think the only people that can share like their narrative and their story and their lessons are people like you, Ton, who have a book, or people like Elon, or people like Sam Altman that are just at the creme de la creme. But I think what we don't realize is like pretty much everyone has something valuable to say just for different audiences. So I think once
True.
I kind of got over that hump and just started sharing and building consistency, I was able to build a better cadence for what people cared about and what actually was valuable. Um, the reflection itself, I would say it's not something I've thought about too much in terms of it helping me or impeding me. But I think generally speaking, just oversharing, whether it's with investors or with employees or with your co-founder, and just like being overly communicative, for us as a remote first company, it helps us grow a lot faster, and that applies to building in public with the audience as well.
Exactly. Yeah, because it starts indeed with sharing with your employees. Everybody knows everything, and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now we're going to share with the public. But I completely agree. I mean, if you asked me 5 years ago, would you write a book or can you write a book? I would have said no. So never. But still, I did. Today, I write a daily email every single day. That was also impossible. Well, it is possible,
Yeah.
and the benefit is actually not possibly not even that much, or well, it's a lot for the people that subscribe to it, of course, because it's valuable stuff. But it's indeed it makes yourself way sharper. And that is actually what I see with building in public, because every time you have to report it on it again and be honest
Yeah.
about it, it makes you think.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's just end of the month, possibly end of the quarter, when the numbers
Yeah.
hit. So
Exactly.
yeah,
And it's
it's
almost like I almost feel like just starting the thing is the hardest part, right? Whether it's the book, whether it's the newsletter, whether it's build in public, you'll tweak and iterate and get better at it over time. You don't have to like chase perfection, but I think sometimes as founders and as operators, we're chasing like that quality bar or that perfection level that we're not going to hit in the first 5 episodes or first 2 books. And that just stops you from starting, but you got to start, right? To get better.
it's the same as building a company.
Yeah.
But by doing, you get better, and that's where the art hits at the end.
Yeah.
Let me see. This is not a space where you are alone, because I mean, I already had someone on my podcast that was in this space. I know my one
Yeah.
of my well, a couple of my customers are using different platforms.
Hmm.
Um, how do you go about differentiating in that market? But also, because I know you got a bootstrap mindset, and you've certainly, I mean, you have raised, but you've raised way less than the others. How do you ensure that you keep standing out and outperform these guys that are better funded?
Yeah, I think a lot of that also depends on like the type of company that you're looking to build, whether you're bootstrapped or whether you're venture funded. Because there's always this notion that, hey, if somebody's done something, don't like you can't go in, right? The wheel has already been invented.
Yeah,
But I think depending on market dynamics, there's obviously like winner takes all markets. There's oligopolies where you can only have one Lyft and one Uber, and then you have more so no winner takes all dynamics as well, like the POS market, for example. So I think for us, the market for like creating product demonstrations and communicating how workflows work and getting people to value, it's a massive market. Any knowledge worker could benefit from this. So
yeah,
that was one. And I think we saw gaps in the market on how, I guess, smaller customers were being served initially. Uh, and that's kind of the wedge we started with. How do we actually unlock the ability to create better product demos, easier ways of communicating workflow, and taking what had already kind of been done for the enterprise segment for people paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now unlock that in a really, really simple, delightful, easy to use product. And I think that's been kind of our bread and butter in helping us grow to pretty much, I would say, like the biggest, if not top three biggest, like user counts within our industry. Even though we are probably the youngest company in our space as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then now, obviously, we're really doubling down on, hey, how do we go agents first and build workflows and AI native product demos that, create themselves, update themselves, and are, accessible to agents.
Yeah. Now you're touching upon a really, really big topic. Because what is first? Is it there's agents, now we have to build an agent first product? Or are there now things that you can do with agents that have never been possible before? And therefore, it's that 10x value that customers are going to get.
Yeah, I think now you kind of have to build for both, right? So for us, we've already made our product accessible to agents. So if customers want to go in and build a team of demo builders and demo optimizers, they can totally do that because every action on their workspace is now accessible via MCP or Model Context Protocol. Then on the client side, on our end, we've actually built out like an autonomous AI demo agent that helps you like qualify leads, do a lot of that like heavy solutions consulting, solutions engineering type of back and forth work to help you kind of reorient that time for building better relationships and like running the live demos. So yeah, we're like all in, but at the same time, I do think there is the need for UI for more like deterministic flows or users that need guardrails, right? Because you can't just talk to an agent and just like imagine something to be built. Sometimes you need to visually see it. Every human, every knowledge worker is different in the way that they work. So you need to
Yeah.
create a system that has a balance of both for us.
Yeah, exactly. Has that shift also shifted what your company is actually all about?
No, no. I think for us, the core thesis is still, communicating, products is and demonstrating products is essential in all lines of work, and we want to make it seamless, fast, and easy for humans or agents to be able to deploy that at scale.
Yeah, I heard you talk a couple of times about creating demos. And what I've also
Yeah,
seen, and what of course, when I see the whole shift happening around what agents can do, it moves more towards outcomes.
yeah.
Possibly, well, I mean, what I've written down here is demo delivery and qualification. These are more outcomes than it's okay, than the physical creation of the demo. How does that impact what your company is?
Oh, that's a huge one. Yeah, and in terms of like the perception of value as well as pricing, I think that's where you have the most change because I think to a certain extent, just pure play seat-based pricing is morphing and changing and disappearing over time. Um, and it's a challenge because I think that has been kind of the standard since the invention of SaaS. And it is predictable, it's understandable, people buy in that way. And so for you to go purely to like outcomes or purely to credit-based pricing, I think it can alienate some people. So I think for us, that's been a challenge, frankly speaking, of like, how do we do this the right way where it's understandable, it's predictable, it can be modeled by the customer. And we, yeah, tie like value of our product and tie outcomes without trying to, stop people from using it or creating a disincentive to create more demos or create and share more content because maybe they're being billed by views or being billed by demos. And that's tough because that is our viral flywheel, right? People find our content by seeing it embedded, having it be shared, and we don't want to create incentives for them to not do
Yeah,
that, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's a huge shift, particularly also the pricing one where they go from seat to usage. Because at first, people know, okay, I have a license for 20 users. That's the price. And
Yeah.
now it's about, hey, you've created 50 demos and last month you've created 20. So the price is a little different. So
Yeah.
does it, I mean, you talked about two things. First of all, it will alienate people. Is that internally because people are like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Can we actually do this? Or is it more on the other end, the customer side?
I think on more on the customer side, a lot of the times there's no predictability, right? I think finance teams, if you're deploying demos across 200, 300, 500 seats in the organization, getting every SE or BDR to use it, you don't want to have your costs be spiking to 1,000 one month and 500 the other month and 2,000 the other month. There's no predictability of spend. There's ways to mitigate that, and I think create systems around that. But yeah, that I think that behavioral shift, which is happening right now, it's not an easy one that just like comes overnight. And also for a business, that takes like a complete fundamental revamp of like their entire model and everything they've built, which I think people need to be willing to take on with the market shifting and things progressing at the rate it is. But yeah, it's a big decision. And you
Yeah.
could be making the decision today, but as you know, Tom, we were talking about it, the market could also shift. Things are moving so quickly that like what you're transitioning to now could actually be obsolete in 6 months. So you want to plan ahead and make sure what is something that actually could stand the test of time.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean it's two ways. For customers it can be fluctuating, but on the other end, of course, that luxury of knowing what your MRR would be is also
Yeah.
not reliable anymore.
Yeah.
And like you say, if you make the price, if you do too much to the user's price, people will also think, okay, now I have to use the product less. Where by using it more is actually it could actually be very very beneficial. So I think it really changes how the value proposition is delivered.
Yeah.
That story. Have you seen
Yeah.
examples of that?
A little bit, a little bit. Yeah, I think people are definitely gearing up more towards like outcomes-based pricing for us. I think the product is like simple enough and affordable enough for most people to get like outsized ROI to like an extreme degree. And I think in many cases, like people moving to outcomes-based pricing will pay more. But I think one of the flaws or the hurdles with outcomes-based pricing that we've struggled with as someone exploring that as well is how do you prove the outcome, right? You say it's a
Exactly.
qualified conversation or if it's a ticket close, how do you know that it was done the right way and it actually helped the customer achieve what they wanted to, unless you are hooked into their business and their CRM and their outcomes and you can like extrapolate or back calculate. It still is an approximation of value, obviously better than seat-based pricing or better than credit-based pricing. But that's something that I've struggled with is like, how do if we're rolling out our agent, for example, how do you determine what is a qualified conversation that works in a way that applies to all these different types of companies that have different value metrics or different thresholds?
Yeah.
It's not an easy one to set up.
Well, I mean, first of all, if you is your own definition, but then even marketing and sales teams don't agree within the company. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah, no,
then you got 2,000 plus customers.
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be evolving over time, of course. So interesting to see how this pans out. But that whole notion of outcomes, now that suddenly you have to deliver something that is actually where the customer says, yeah, it's true. It's almost like a guarantee or it's something that's completed and they are satisfied with it. Has that made your company a better company?
I think it definitely does, right? When your values aligned with the outcomes of the customer and
Yeah,
you keep like customer values, customer empathy, and latch onto that direction,
yeah,
100%. Like I think it simplifies the roadmap, simplifies your mission, helps you deliver more value.
yeah. And now I want to kind of you just triggered something else because I mean from my research and how you got to the 2,000 or 2,500 paying customers, what I realized at some point in time is a sort of a shift towards okay, a certain number of customers that you sort of want to detract from, but you're now moving towards a little bit the larger type companies. Have
Yeah.
you seen a shift in your ideal customer profile, ICP as they call it, over the last
Yeah.
2, 3 years?
100%. Yeah. And I think that's a natural thing, right? Um, you can aspire to serve indie hackers or indie customers all you want, but naturally, as you start to grow, as your ambitions grow, as you have a bigger footprint,
Hmm.
I think most companies naturally move like slowly and slowly up market, and that's what happened for us.
Hmm.
Um, and that's natural, right? Because the indie founders, the devs, they're the ones that are going to be willing to take the most risks and try out the frontier products. So you kind of take what you can get and you work with them and you serve them well. And ideally, in a perfect world, you continue to work with those folks and continue over delivering on value as well. But
Yeah.
enterprises are not going to sniff you, right? Unless you've been in the market long enough, or if you have built up enough like brand affinity or I guess brand eminence. You're like, plastered across enough channels for them to like notice you.
Yeah.
Um, and that's also a kind of a telling way to build defensibility as well, right? Now that everyone's saying, hey, Lovable or these companies can like build what you're doing. You can't just
Yeah.
build something and get 2,000 customers, right? I think if you can build that brand eminence and distribution and like remain as one of like the two or three companies that are eminent or thought of first when you think of a category, I think you're going to be able to stick around a lot longer, build that moat, build that defensibility versus,
Yeah. True.
not having that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, this has also gone in waves all the way back to earlier stages. Just because you can build something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And it has to do, of course, how with the fact how critical is it for for a company, and if it's critical or is it foundational, then people will invest in stuff that actually works and it's
Yeah.
secure and it will stay up and etc. And
Yeah.
that requires a little bit more than vibe coding. Um, Another thing then, and we talked about it just before we got started. This pace of technology, I think we can all agree that it's yeah at its highest at the moment. But first of all, how do you make those choices about what you invest in technology wise, and what is the biggest hurdle to keep that momentum going? What have you seen
Yeah.
within Superdemo?
Very, very tough. And I think for us, we are adopting a lot of like cutting edge frontier tools, and we're very much early adopters and have like a pulse of what's going on in the market. But I think we're all extremely busy, whether it's a customer or whether it's us. We have our own priorities. And I think just the whiplash of like change management, adopting a new tool every week, it's just not possible, right? Unless we're just hobbyists and tinkering around and that's our full-time job, which for most of us, it's not. I think the change management and the time it takes to change like habits and behavior is something that a lot of people overlook because there's also a cost basis to people adopting software as well. If you're selling to an enterprise and it takes 3 hours for someone to like get trained up and become a competent user of a feature or product, and you now multiply that around 100, 200, 500 employees, that there is defensibility in them having learned that behavior and having to like rip out a process that is ingrained into their habits and pick up something new, right? Um, and we live with that. Our customers live with that have adopted Supademo across like critical workflows. And so for us, yeah, we try not to like pick up tools just for the sake of picking things up. We try to experiment when we do have free time. And if it's like a marketed enough improvement where it's like 10x what we're doing, I think it makes sense. But some of those incremental bumps, it's just it's not worth the squeeze because
No.
the cost of us like changing behavior is not bigger than the delta, right, of
Yeah.
the value from that tool.
Yeah, it's always, of course, that the people become the bottleneck again. Um, it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting when the AI when the agent starts to pick their own tools
Yeah.
because because they can. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see how that pans out, and I completely agree with you. It's undoable, and not only for your own organization, but also what's the implication for customers, because they are going to see the impact of that, of course, as well.
Yeah.
Um, Question about scaling, because you're in this scale mode right now, 3-4 million revenue with a relatively lean team. What what has been an obstacle that you had to overcome in the scaling process that you, if you look back in hindsight,
Yeah.
have you been most proud of?
Um, I'd say the biggest one that I'm still trying to work through and become better at is like removing myself as a bottleneck for like decision making and outcomes and output. I think when you first start off, you as a founder is wearing like every hat and you're responsible for essentially being like the sieve or the filter for every single thing that happens. It goes through you, you verify, you check, you improve, you ship. And that starts to fall apart when you have like 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 people and you have different departments and you're trying to move quickly. And
Yeah,
I think for a time, I made the mistake of trying to latch on and like still own that. And I think what happened was it was preventing us from like moving and shipping at the pace that we wanted. And at
yeah,
times it also probably demoralized a lot of our staff because I was like questioning things or I would shut things down or I would say something didn't like meet our bar of quality. So I think figuring out a way to like step back and let people own things and giving them like trust first and autonomy first to just like run with it. I think that's been a good unlock in terms of us moving quickly. It's something I still struggle with, I think, as a founder, where I'm like, sometimes I'm like overstepping and looking at too many things or reviewing too many things. And at times I should just like let them, hey, go run with it. I trust you. I'll give you feedback on it if you want. But yeah, leading with trust first.
it's that has been a change that I've heard from so many founders when they got over that hurdle, things just started to take a different shape. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
completely agree. I mean, when you started the company and you build it and it's your money, then you want to make sure that it's that people are not making the mistakes. But I mean, people have to make mistakes at the end to grow. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, what is a metric that you stopped tracking over the last couple of years that you initially thought was crucial?
That's interesting. A metric that we stopped tracking. Well, instead of being like specific about a singular metric, I'll actually give you more of like the bird's eye view. We stopped tracking probably like 20 different stats and metric because I think sometimes when you're measuring too much, you run into like over analysis or analysis paralysis. Um, the way we think about it is we don't measure unless that data gives us like actionable intent or things to act upon. So for example, even things like number of demos overall that have been created or like number of signups, for example, like some of these vanity metrics we care less about. And we try to just like flush down to just a few core things that are like leading metrics that we can just put all of our like eggs into and all of our focus into. So things like activation rate, right? That is like a precursor to figuring out how many users are actually gonna like not just sign up, but find value in our platform and eventually become subscribers. I think those are the type of metrics that we've tried to hone in on and try to align our team on. I think once you get past like three like stats or metrics for a team, I think it just gets to be a little bit overwhelming and people don't
Exactly.
understand like why we're measuring things and why we're tracking things.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, vanity metrics versus the one that really matter. So yeah, he almost went to the completely different side, nothing, measuring nothing unless it's really yeah in your face. Um, One question on, well, yeah, we talked in the beginning a little bit about the company that you had first, which is the company called Freshline.
Yes.
That company also grew quite a bit towards 3-4 million.
Yeah.
Um, that you stopped it, and you explained a couple of things about like what was hard then that was actually the start of the new company. But what did you take? What is a big lesson that you took from that company that you are copying right now or actually avoiding right now?
Yeah. I mean, that company is still around. It's 10 years into business. It's, profitable. It's steady. It's definitely not the venture track opportunity that we were hoping for it to become. Um, I'd say the biggest lesson is being way more thoughtful about the problem space, the market opportunity before diving in. I like to say 99% of the time, a lot of the opportunities, the luck, the momentum a startup is able to gain is actually from structural like market dynamics. If you're in an emerging, fast growing, trendy market that has a like huge appetite for growth and is emerging, you're just going to be able to ride the wave and build much faster and build for more like specific problems than in a market that is structurally challenging. And I
Yeah.
think we were in a structurally challenging market where there wasn't a real like answer to like the why now question of why Freshline existed. Supademo, I think we have a much clearer answer for that, but back then we didn't have as much of a clear answer for that. But it's funny. It's like now there is much more of a clear answer for the the why now for a company like Freshline with AI and all this tooling, creating efficiencies that were not possible even with like a SaaS product in food distribution.
Funny, yeah.
Yeah.
Funny how that evolves. And when
Yeah.
certain, I mean, actually, the second time I hear this today that we were too early in the market.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, I have seen tools to create demos 20 years ago. But of course, yeah, completely different from where they are today and what is possible today. Last
Yeah.
question then. Out of all the things that you've learned, that you take with you as an entrepreneur, what would be a do and what would be a don't that you'd like to share with others who are aspiring for what you're doing?
I'd say in terms of do, like just take that first step, like optimize for learning, like get stuff out there, build momentum, have a bias for action and speed. I think that's the fastest way you start iterating, optimizing, building the right things. Like don't
Yeah.
chase perfection and just go and do it. Don't do, I would say, um, optimize for like vanity metrics or vanity press or vanity perception. I think a lot of people try to build their business so that they're perceived the right way by investors or by like the people around them. Or they chase things like publications and press without a real clear directive of like what they want to do with that momentum or press anyways. So I think like going back down to the root of why you're building and what's most important and focusing on those things first again rather than some of those vanity outcomes.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck on the next, slot of the journey. Really interesting what you're doing. Impressed with the momentum that you are creating, which is one of the traits in my book. And I mean, I think we picked up on a couple of topics that actually are leading towards that why momentum can be created and how you do that. So thanks for sharing that today.
Beautiful. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, Con.
It was indeed. Thank you very much. And this wraps up my conversation with Joseph Lee, CEO of Supademo. If you got value from this episode, please share it with other SaaS founders who need to hear this as well. And if you got 10 seconds, a quick rating or review on Apple Podcasts will help more people to find these conversations. Thank you for listening to the Remarkable SaaS podcast. If you want more insights like this, subscribe to my daily email, Espresso with Ton. It's a 2-minute shot of clarity for SaaS founders who want to create pull, not push. You can sign up, along with getting my book, at valueinspiration.com. See you in the next episode.